Hello everyone and welcome back, and in this video I want to continue where we left off, figuring out the distance between 2 points that don't share an x or a y. And so we left off in the previous video here. We had just generated our triangle by taking the points that we had, which are the green and blue, and extending imaginary lines down to the axes, and then where they intersected we put a new point. And so we have this new point here, 1, 1. So let's go ahead and add that to our list of things that we have here. So now we'll have a point 3, which this point was not given to us, right? Point 3 is 1, 1. So now you might do x3 equals 1, y3 equals 1. So what you might notice here is that we have the ability to quickly figure out the distance between this new point that we were given, that we weren't given, and the 2 points that we were. So let's go ahead and quickly fill in those values here. Right, so the distance from this point to our point 1 here, right, in this case the x's are the same, so the difference in length here is just equal to the differences in the y's. So this is a 2. The distance between this point that we weren't given and the point that we were here, right, the y's are the same, so we can use that, the difference in x's as the length here. So that allows us to use a 2 there, right? So now what we can do is we can apply this Pythagorean theorem, right? Because our distance, right, our distance that we're interested in would be the equivalent of this c side over here. So we're going to use d for distance squared is going to be equal to, and then we're going to have our 2 squared, and we're going to have our other 2 squared. We're going to add these two together. Right, we've just now taken care of the Pythagorean theorem. So this is going to be equal to 2 squared is 4. This 2 squared is also 4, which is going to be equal to 16. So just to keep track, d squared right now is equal to 16. So if we want d is going to be equal to the square root of 16, which is going to be 4. So in this case, right, our distance was equal to 4. So now what I want to do is I actually want to slide over a little bit, give ourselves some more room to work with, and I want to take this Pythagorean theorem and I want to generalize it out to an equation that we can just plug our points into. So let's do c squared equals a squared plus b squared, right? This is the Pythagorean theorem that we already had. So this is going to be the generalized equation. This is the generalized equation, right? So the first thing that we might want to do is let's just figure out what we're looking for. So c in this case is our distance. So let's just replace distance squared equals, well, what was a? Right? Let's replace a. What was a? So if we go back over to here, all right, what was a? A in this case was 2. A was the difference between this point that we were given and this point that we sort of created to make things easy on ourselves. But the thing is, this distance right here is just the difference in the x's between the points. So this distance right here, this 2, right, this is the same as x is the absolute value of x2 minus x1. But since we're squaring them, we don't need that absolute value. So a in this case is going to be equal to x2 minus x1 squared plus, what was b? Let's go back and take a look. Well, in this case, right, our b side was also 2. It was also 2. And so in this case, right, the b here is because the y's are the same, this is the difference in x's. So what we can do here is we can go back here and we can substitute that in there. So we can say y2 minus y1 squared. So hopefully that made sense, right? We sort of made this third point here based on this sort of imaginary lines and their intersection. But in reality, all we did was we took the x from point 1 and the y from point 2. That's all we did. So this is actually the same thing as x1, y2, right? And so these distances are directly related to the original 2 points, x2 minus x1, y2 minus y1 squared, and then this is the distance squared. So if we want just the distance, right, if we want just distance, right, just distance, that's going to be equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Let's pull the radical over. Right, so what we've done here is we've taken the Pythagorean theorem, we've substituted in our 2 points that we have, so we have coordinates to work with, and we've generalized an equation now where given 2 points that don't share an x or a y, we can go directly to get this distance here. We plug everything into this formula here. So hopefully you can memorize this formula. Distance equals the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Hopefully you're able to follow along. Hopefully you understand where these different things came from. If you have anything that seems confusing, I encourage you to go back, pause the video, watch the parts that were confusing, and as always, please reach out. Thank you.